must start today's proceedings with a correction and an apology, really, to the late great Nicky Lauda. I know the podcast I put out on Monday was exclusively F1, so that this one would be not F1 related, but there will be some F1 chat. But in that last podcast I discussed obviously Max Verstappen winning his third consecutive world championship, and even in the podcast previous to that I was discussing multiple world champions and those who have won 3 or more, and in both those instances I left out the late great. So I'm reaching for a napkin because I've spilled coffee. I am driving as well, as you can probably hear. Again, driving home from work, so I'm trying to use my time wisely. I left out the late great Nicky Lauda, who obviously won 3 world championships. And not only did he win 3 world championships, he obviously did so after, sorry, excuse me, burping again because I'm doing this straight after having lunch. He won his second one obviously after the tragic, not tragic, well, he survived, but the terrible accident that nearly took his life at the Nürburgring. So he won twice with Ferrari, but then also he did the great thing that I'm hoping Max Verstappen will do at some point, by winning a world championship with a second team, and after a comeback from an initial retirement, because he came back in 1984 to McLaren as teammates with the up-and-coming Alain Prost, who obviously went on to win 4 world championships. He came back in 1984 and beat Alain Prost, winning a 3rd world championship. So wherever you are, Nicky, I sincerely apologise. I'm ashamed of myself, and I have let you down. I'm ashamed of myself because my Formula 1 knowledge should be better than that, off the cusp. And yes, I let down one of the legends of the sport. So I wanted to start off proceedings with that. So I'm driving. I didn't actually scroll through my motoring week, which I normally write down. Trying to think of things that I do. I didn't do anything particularly spectacularly automotive. I haven't. I'm still carless. I didn't go to any particular events when I rolled this window because it's bringing in some noise. Did I see any cool stuff? On Monday I saw 2 classic minis. One was a 30th anniversary and a 1990 plate 30th anniversary, and then I saw one which I think was a 1971 in a lovely kind of vibrant green mini. Other interesting cars have I seen over the last while. I really should check this stuff, and because I'm recording on my phone now I can't go back through my photos. It's all, if you're listening to this, you follow me on Instagram, car_Nosaur, CAR_NOSAUR. You would have seen everything already, and if you haven't, it's probably all up in my highlights, stories, or whatever you call it anyway. So what was I going to talk about? I'll start with motoring news, I suppose, because it's been a pretty quiet week in the world of the news. I see Kia have displayed some of their upcoming electric cars, the EV3 and the EV4, which one's a small crossover, one's a big saloon. Really embracing the whole angular retro futuristic design that their sister company Hyundai have embraced with the Ioniq 5 and 6. It's mad. I can't remember which one's which one's the EV3 and which one's the EV4, but the large saloon one, they've managed to make circular wheels look triangular, that's a feat in itself. Look them up. They're interesting. I wouldn't say necessarily good looking, but interesting looking cars. The Koreans are on a roll, but I do fear they're at that point where they've gone on such a meteoric rise that an imminent crash may also not be far from their sights. But I'm obviously wrong. They're going to dominate for the next decade or so, until the Chinese take over. What else has there been? What have I got written down here? The Mini launched some of their new variants, which will be EVs, of course. The regular Mini, looks pretty decent. It's the best looking one since the original new Mini, I would say. Although for some reason the one they displayed had tiny little wheels in it, under-wheeled, if you will. Cute looking thing. But then they also launched the new EV Countryman, which the herald is. It'll have an EV range of 287 miles, which, yeah, that's okay, I guess. It's going to cost 42,000 sterling. Start at 40,000 sterling, which seems like a lot of money. So that's 60 grand basic over here. And then obviously if you spec it up a bit, I'm sure it's going to cost a lot more than that. But so like obviously like Countrymans of past, which have had challenging styling in their own right, but they have been quite closely related visually to the normal hatch. But they've kind of gone. They've tried to differentiate this new Countryman from the hatchback a bit, and it looks goddamn ugly. It doesn't have circular lights, which is odd to me. Well, why you would move away from such a mini trademark? The old Clubman, obviously being an exception. It looks terrible. It's a hard, like I said, it's a tricky one to get right anyway. But God, they've really gone down the wrong path with it again. Give it a Google. Horrendous looking thing. There's a new Suzuki Swift. That's all I have to say about that. The Swift has always been a cool little car. Suzuki make good cars, and they're always fun to drive. This one, it's not leaps and bounds different to the ones replacing, just slightly uglier, which is never a good thing. But it's hard to dislike the Swift. What the hell does that say? Oh yeah, I'll get that in a moment. I want to talk about because that's really there hasn't been a whole lot of new cars launched recently, last week, since I last spoke to y'all. But a news story that came through today, on the Guardian, I noticed there was a scientific study, if that's the correct term. There was a study done anyway about the treatment of climate change protesters within Europe, and how there seems to be an ongoing trend of them being mistreated, and I thought there was a statue of a husky dog, but it's actually a real husky. He's standing so still. Beautiful husky dog that is chained up, which I don't know if it's a customer or he's a guard dog for what is called sunroomsolutions.ie here on the Nace Road. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the protesters. How there's a worrying trend about how they're being stigmatised, and how governments seem to be inventing laws to penalise these protesters. With one example of two lads who blocked a motorway overpass in the UK, who have been sentenced to 3 years in prison, which admittedly is a very, very harsh penalty for such a what they're now claiming is a crime. I would be very wary about calling these things crimes. You should be allowed to protest, absolutely. Putting someone behind bars for 3 years for something like that, when there are much more heinous crimes where people are getting lesser sentences, be it drugs or abuse. The only thing I did take umbrage with in the article from this study was that they're saying that these are non-violent crimes, which is a bit of a stretch. Like, they're not attacking people in that sense of violence, but gluing yourself to a road or disrupting a sporting event creates an atmosphere of tension. Road rage is a thing anyway, and gluing yourself to a road only escalates that. And then, like, disrupting a sporting event where people could be, it's not uncommon where people could be full of alcohol. Now, I'm not putting blame on the protesters for the actions of others taking their aggression out on the protesters. But, you know, you piss on a wasp's nest, you know what I mean? These things will happen, that's what I'm trying to say. So I wouldn't go as far as say it's all non-violent. They're using quite aggressive means to protest. Again, I tried not to make this a political podcast anyway, and you know, I know it's quite hypocritical for someone who's talking about cars to go on about climate change and climate change protesters being a bad thing. But the way they are conducting themselves is being a nuisance. It's not well thought through. I do agree they should be allowed to protest. I fully agree that climate change is a pressing and a very important issue that we need to deal with right now. But there are better ways to approach it, both from the protesting side and from the way that governments and law enforcement seem to be reacting to the protesters. Just wanted to get that off my chest. In slightly less serious news, but also serious in the world of Formula 1, I didn't mention this on my Formula 1 episode the other day. Obviously the FIA have granted they've given the green light to the Andretti application to become the 11th Formula 1 team on the grid. Now that doesn't mean it's going to happen, because the FIA have to sign it off, and then FOM, who are the commercial rights holder, then have to sign it off. The FIA have signed it off because they believe that the Andretti have met the criteria needed from a sporting perspective to create a team. They have the resources, they have the know-how, so they feel that's all good. The problem is the FOM side, which also is getting a lot of pushback from the teams. Basically, long and short of it is the teams don't want to divvy up the financial pie that they have currently, which seems quite greedy. Now, I do agree with some of the arguments. James Vels, who's the current team principal for Williams, and obviously one of the teams that is been quite financially hit over the last few years and is currently in a rebuilding phase. You know, he was pushed quite hard by Sky F1 about the issue. I see some of his arguments about how he is looking to, you know, the team has been making losses over the last few years because they are investing, and you know, an 11 team coming in, you know, will dilute the pie. But there is a dilution fund in place, which is currently at $200 million, which Andretti would have to pay. Sorry, taking a sip of coffee. Which would have to pay to fulfill their role if they were granted entrance into the world of Formula 1. So yeah, there are some arguments that I can understand, but it's very much it seems greedy to me. I think Andretti would be a great addition to the Formula 1 grid. You know, it's a great name. They've achieved a lot in motorsport over the years, both in F1 and IndyCar and other forms. So yeah, I think that Jesus Christ, people can't use motorways. Good Lord. Sorry. Yeah, so it seems unlikely that the FOM side of things, due to pushback from the teams, it seems like they probably won't grant. I'm going to roll my window because I'm on the motorway now. Although, like, it's gotten a lot cooler. We had a warm snap there at the beginning of the end of last week and the start of this week, an unusually warm snap. And when I did my outdoors podcast, there's a cool, what's that, Toyota, Japanese version of a Corolla Estate, early 90s, all JDM modified. Again, if I wasn't recording with my phone, I would have taken a picture of that. Yeah, but it's starting to get cooler again. It's a pleasant day today. The sun is shining and it's about 15 degrees at the moment, so it's not super cool. It was cool this morning. It was 6-7 degrees earlier this morning, and the forecast for the weekend is single digits, like down as far as 2 or 3 degrees in the evening time. Anyway, completely getting off topic. Yeah, the Andretti thing. It doesn't seem like the FOM side are going to grant Andretti, which will be sad. As I think it'll be a great addition, and the reasons for them not being allowed in seem a little bit petulant. But there you go. That's pretty much the guts of the news element. I'm going to just ramble on about this. Will probably be a relatively short episode because obviously I rambled on about Formula 1 on Monday, and it's been a quiet week. But I noted down some things that I just wanted to discuss. First thing, and it's not the first time I've seen something like this. I was behind an Audi A3. It was a 6-year-old. It was a 172 reg, if I remember correctly. Audi A3 the other morning. Again, a bright sunny day, and the person in front had the wipers on, not intermittent, the first constant wipe. Again, as the sun splitting the sky, they weren't fogged up their windscreen or anything like that. Now, it's not to say that a VAG product couldn't be experiencing an electrical gremlin. It most certainly could be. But this looked like to be a very good condition, not particularly old Audi A3. And it struck me that the person driving the car had their windscreen wipers on and wasn't aware that they were on. And I've seen this before. And it really makes you wonder, if someone doesn't notice that going on, what else are they not paying attention to while they're driving a vehicle? And in that same stretch, again, it's kind of off topic, but something else I wanted to touch on, of people just being completely oblivious to their surroundings. People driving cars is very bad if they're being oblivious, but and again, I think I might have mentioned this before, but unnecessary use of pedestrian lights at the crossings. The one that got me though, this one was, it was a fucking cyclist. Again, I'm not anti-cyclist, I am one myself, but this was a full-on lycra up on his carbon bicycle guy who unnecessarily used a set of lights. He got to a junction of a clear road, pressed the button again on a bicycle. This man was using the roadway, but because he wanted to cross, he decided he'll use the pedestrian part to cross, because he wants to have the best of both worlds. He pressed the button, realised there was nothing coming, and then by the time I got to the lights, it had turned red. Cunt. And again, this is something that is not new. This happens all the time. Assholes coming up to pedestrian lights in just autopilot, pressing the button without looking left or right, pressing the button, realising the road is fucking free, crossing, and then when you get to the fucking lights, it goes red for no fucking reason. You're stopped, and there's people behind you are stopped for no fucking reason. Grinds my fucking gears. Speaking of traffic lights, one thing I've also noticed of recent, it's not mass rolled out yet, and I don't think it's going to be everywhere, but I've noticed a steady increase of these little orbs at the top of traffic lights at some junctions. And what they are is they're some sort of like radar that scans to see if someone is at that junction, and otherwise the lights won't change. Now the thing is, these have just kind of come out of nowhere. I said, like, I'm seeing an ever increasing number of them. I've seen one or two, and now I've seen like 5 or 6 knocking around. There's one up in around the like near Temple Street Hospital, and there's one out in near Beaumont, and a few others scattered around. I don't know if this is going to become a mass market thing, but I haven't noticed any public information about these, and because of that, I've been stuck behind a few people who don't realise it's a thing. And like 2 or 3 cycles of lights go through at a junction, but the one that we're at doesn't change because they're not close enough to the line, and the radar's not picking up that there's a car there. Again, can't blame the motorists here. I wasn't aware of it. I only found out about them because like the one that I was talking about, it's out in an industrial estate out near Beaumont, and I was slightly far back from the line, which again, move up as far as you close as you can, slap on the wrist to me. But like the light wasn't changing. It's only because the guy in the van then came out from behind me and goes like, "Oh, you have to move forward. That sensor there won't change the lights unless you move forward." So that's how I know about it. So like just, I don't know if anyone else listening to this has seen or heard of these. Maybe I'm giving a public service announcement now. But again, like, how could you implement something like that? Like, not even have a sign up on the pole to say, you need to move forward, because this is a sensor operated traffic light or whatever. Nonsense, absolute fucking nonsense. Speaking of nonsense and misinformation, the budget was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, I think. So I'm going to take a sip of my coffee again. So the budget was on. And to preempt any protest and violence after recent ongoings at Leinster House with protesters and the risk of safety of TDs, they decided they were going to block off all around Merrion Square, and then over the other side as well on Dawson Street, isn't it? The other side of Leinster Houses, for the day of the budget, in case there was any backlash. So there was a lot of big guard presence, and all the roads were blocked off. But again, they didn't tell anybody, and there was no signage to say this was happening. So traffic on Tuesday in the city centre was absolutely insane. I had a delivery on Messville Road, and then I had to go up to Merrion Square to go to the Department of Equality, of all places, which is just up from Leinster House. And to get from the Messville Road to as close as I could get, because it was all closed off, to the Department of Equality, it took me an hour and a half, which normally that would be a journey of maybe 10 minutes in the early morning during traffic. An hour and a half. Now, had I been aware they were closing the roads, I would have taken an alternate route, or we would have organised something different for that delivery. But no. And then, like, even when you approached it, it's only when you got to Merrion Square, were you made aware that the roads were closed. So again, another little bit of miscommunication. I'm parked, I'm home, I'm turning off my engine. Another piece of absolute nonsense from the councils and the government and everyone else who's in charge with these things. Rambly. I haven't got too much more to say. I don't think I've been recording particularly long. 20 minutes. Yeah, so this will be short enough. 22 minutes. What else was I going to say? Just a last little observation. Again, something I've seen an awful lot. Misaligned, misapplied, mismounted, whatever way you want to put it, L plates on cars. And then people who managed to... Well, the one that triggered this for me to write it down on my notes here was... It was I can't believe there's L plates on such a car, but it was almost brand new Mercedes GLC or whatever, one of those kind of coupe fucking 4x4 crossover jobs. It had an L plate that was obviously supposed to be stuck to the inside of the rear window, stuck to the outside, and it was stuck to the outside with sellotape. And then you get people who obviously can't understand perspective. Now, look, maybe it's a form of dyslexia or something. Like, I'm not going to, there might be reasons for it, but surely when you get out and look and go, oh, well, that's not right. So I've seen people, with them backwards, upside down, up, I say, like, outside when they should be on the inside. The magnetic ones, again, stuck to windows. My own mother once, how old is my mother? I'm 37, so she'd be 77. And she's been driving for 30 plus years and has yet to get her full license. One of the times she failed her driving test was because, again, she tried to stick L plates that were due to be stuck on the inside of the window. She tried to stick them on the outside, and while she was driving to the test centre, although she should have the rail plates up all the time, she doesn't. She tried to stick them onto the rear window, drove off, and then obviously they fell off on the way to the test centre. Yes, no, my mother, her current provisional licence is out of date, and we've kind of had a chat that she probably should just hang up her keys. Not the worst driver in the world. She doesn't pass her test is mostly a self-confidence thing. But her advancing years also isn't improving her skills. So, might be time for her. She doesn't go particularly very far. It's just, it's a tough conversation to have. It is taking away someone's independence a little bit. But look, my mother's in great sound mind and health. Don't get me wrong, but it might be time for her to hang up her racing boots. Don't really have a whole lot else to say. Getting obviously my massive Formula 1 chat, which was nearly a 45-minute long podcast about one Grand Prix, has slowed things down. I don't think there's any motorsport on this weekend. I'm not sure about the WRC, but I think there's a little bit of a gap until the next WRC round. Haven't been keeping up to date with the MotoGP too much. That could be on this weekend. We also obviously had the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup. Ireland playing New Zealand on Saturday. That should be an exciting game. I think you'd have to say that's probably the biggest game in Irish rugby history coming up. I don't think we ever made it to the quarterfinals of the World Cup before, and if we haven't been up against a team of such a high calibre as New Zealand. I think we've beaten New Zealand the last 3 times we played them, haven't we? But anyway, that should be an exciting game. So that's on at the weekend, of course. So I'll wrap up with my normal bunch of nonsense. My classified find of the week. It's a 1.1 litre Citroen Saxo, which I'm sure some people will go like, that's not particularly exciting. But me and a friend of mine were discussing after Johnny Smith did an auction walk around video there recently where there was a mint Saxo VTR for sale. I was like, Saxos used to be everywhere, and now you never see one. And then the next day, I actually saw a black, just a regular 1 litre. But then so this popped up on Done Deal. It's got 89,000 miles on it. It's in Carlow. It's red. Now the paint has faded dreadfully. But it's got an NCT until May next year. It's a 89,000 miles Citroen Saxo, €1,350, and look, I'm sure there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Great little car because they weigh something like 750 kilos or something. Light little French car. Again, I don't know why I'm telling people about this. I should probably buy this car. It's a facelift. I can't remember exactly what year it is. It's a facelift, so it must be early millennium. But yeah, check that out. Again, not many Saxos up on Done Deal, so I'm sure you'll find it pretty easily. We don't have a YouTube channel to push this week, but something that is on YouTube and I watched the other evening because I hadn't watched it in years, and it holds up. The Butcher Boy, the entire movie is up on YouTube. So yeah, just I think if you search Butcher Boy, it comes up possibly as one of the first results. And even if it doesn't, just type in Butcher Boy and just filter the duration to long. It'll come up there. Perfect quality, full movie, excellent. I say it holds up. I'd love to say I read the book and be cultured, but I haven't. I've only ever watched the movie. I hear the book is brilliant, but the movie is also brilliant. So if you haven't watched The Butcher Boy in years, or if you've never seen The Butcher Boy, check that out. It's up on YouTube. And again, I'm gonna recommend a full album this week for my music recommendation. It came out 3 years ago. It's Fiona Apple's most recent album. When it first came out, I got absolutely addicted to it. I think I listened to her about 6 or 7 months straight, and then obviously time moves on, no more music comes out. And then one of the songs off it came on shuffle, when I was listening to my streaming there the other day. I was like, God, I forgot how good that album is, so I started listening to it again. It's called Fetch the Bolt Cutters. It's the name of the album, Fiona Apple. If you have to pick a track, go for the title track, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. If you enjoyed that, you enjoy the rest of the album. It's brilliant. Fiona Apple is an exceptional artist. That's pretty much all I have to do. I have to drone on about now for this week's podcast. As ever, if you have listened, yes, it is as dreadful as always. I do apologise if you listen to the Formula 1 one. It being outside, there was an awful lot of background noise, and the impact of walking and my breath. I was holding the microphone too close to my face at points, so it did get a bit of wind noise and and I don't have a pop shield on my phone, so there was a bit of going into the microphone and stuff. So I do apologise for that. I'll probably stray away from doing the walking around outdoor podcasts too much, unless I get some sort of mammothly expensive high quality microphone. But as I say, if you have been listening, as always, I love you, and until next time, be safe, be well, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.